Hey guys, Shane here. So welcome to my post-build video for ASUKA models 1/35 scale Sherman Firefly 5C. The 5 being the British designation for M4A4 and the C which is British designation for any tank equipped with a 17 pounder or basically a 76mm gun. So what do I think about building this kit? In all, it was a very nice, relatively quick build. I'd actually built up a lot quicker than I thought I was going to. There's not many parts in these. The steps aren't all that busy, so it does build up relatively quick. You can probably get this built in a weekend, and if you're a really fast builder, I could see someone firing through this in a day. I put this together in about 3 days, up unto the point of priming, including adding the aftermarket stowage, which I'll talk about later on. So what makes a ASUKA model, or formerly Haskell models, a little bit different to the other Sherman kits on the market is the way the lower hull goes together. So the lower hull and sponsons are actually all individual pieces, and they bolt together in many ways like the real vehicle did as individual plates. Now this has been the source of a little bit of anxiety in some builders' reviews, going they're not entirely sure will this cause issues building up, and I'm very happy to say it didn't. The way the instructions are built and how the steps are laid out, it actually tells you in which order to place the internal plates and lattice work, so everything is square and there's no misalignment. So that went together without any issue. Often too, another point of contention in many model or M4 builds from different manufacturers is the fit of the transmission or final drive housing. I found this on the Dragon M4A2, that the joint between the hull and the transmission had a gap that needed shimming and filling. However, on the ASUKA model here, there was no issue whatsoever. It literally slotted right in, and no filler or anything of that nature was required, which was very nice. There is, which is probably not visible because of the grey primer, there are foundry markings on the left and right upper elements of the transmission cover. Now there isn't too many. There should be more casting and foundry marks over this vehicle. There isn't, but the important ones, well, the main ones or the visible ones are there that everyone knows about at least. Also the headlight guards, these are plastic. There are photo etch options available. I would have used a photo etch, but I lost one of them. It sprang right off the jig and I never found it again. However, the plastic ones are good enough that they can go in. They do have a nice thickness to them. They're not overly thick or overly skinny, and they are a little bit easier to form. The shape of these guards can be a bit tricky to bend correctly on photo etch. Spare track mounting brackets into separate parts. Again, refer to your reference material. Did a vehicle you're trying to make have them or not? I left them in because I couldn't find many photos of Irish Guard, Fireflies and Market Garden from the front that weren't covered in camo netting. So I went to hell with it. It makes it look interesting. Also, this mounting bracket that many of the M4s have, I think all of them have it. That comes in photo etch, however, it's ridiculously thick, and I didn't have a folding tool, nor did I have any pliers. So I actually fabricated it out of very thin styrene rod, or sheet should I say, and just using the original parts as a template. Another issue, the only real issue I ran into in this kit was actually the instructions. And it wasn't immediately apparent when I was just looking through the kit back in the review I did a few months back. And that's often the important thing of actually building these kits, rather than just looking at them and saying how great they are. For the simple fact being is, the instructions when you're not building them can look great, but the minute you actually start cutting parts off and trying to figure out where they go, you can actually immediately show that maybe there was a bit of vagueness in the instructions, and there was at times regarding the fit of certain smaller details onto the turret, such as the aiming vane, this mounting bracket on the rear of the turret in between the two radio mounts was told I had to skip to 3 or 4 steps ahead of it just to try to get a view of where the hell that went. And if that failed, I'd have to go online and look at pictures of the real vehicle. Also, similar issue with the engine deck and access hatches and smoke jenny at the back. Again, times a little bit vague. And I popped off one of the photo etch rear light mounts, which is a shame, but at least I haven't lost it. So that's another thing. There was a little bit of vaguety. I also went ahead and filled in the pistol/shell ejection port just with a little bit of putty, and it's filled in. A lot of the vehicles from this point of the war on had these welded solid, just to improve the turret integrity, as they realised having a big door on the side of a turret tended to encourage Germans to put a round right through the bloody thing. Who would have thought? So I have a few aftermarket goodies on this kit. Or actually, before we get talk about the aftermarkets, the buggies, the vertical volute suspension system buggies, or the FIFI SS suspension. These are workable, and they behave a lot like the real vehicle's suspension, where both arms are individual, so they can pivot individually of each other, and then they have the limiting bracket up here, which dictates how far they can articulate. And how the real one, or how this one is done, is you have the spring system, which you can just about make out. It's not really well lit here. There, you can kind of make out the spring inside, which the real vehicle would have put pressure on these two arms, which would have put the tension on the suspension system. However, how they do in this one to make them workable is you actually have to cut a small piece of rubber and put inside these. This was ridiculously fiddly, to the point where I have actually glued all mine just to be at the normal position. And it kind of made me think about the whole subject of workable items and kits. And after working a bit on Ming's Leopard 2A4 or 5, I can't remember which one it was, with the workable tracks, workable suspension, and I'm beginning to kind of find the whole workable thing a wee bit of a gimmick, because I'm not going to, unless like I want to play with my model on the floor, it being like workable really doesn't mean shit to me. However, I know certain modelers do. I know my mates like Adam, all them, they really like workability in their kits. I personally think it just adds unnecessary complexity to a model kit, that you're never actually going to utilize any of those parts. Same with like recoiling gun barrels. If you want that, in my opinion, perhaps going to RC modeling would be more practical, because then you actually get to enjoy it and actually see it in operation, you know. Whereas with us, everything works, but it's going to go up on a shelf and you're never going to see it. That's just my opinion. Again, like, your mileage may vary. Everyone's needs for model making is somewhat different. The tracks are rubber band. I can't think of the type of track this is. I have to look that up again, because I can never remember the track names, because there are so many of them. So these are two-part rubber band tracks. So you have to glue them again in the middle, and then again. So I've left these open so I can paint and weather them, and then I'll close the circuit. These are very soft, which is good. So they will be able to be very malleable to get them into position. You'll probably have to put maybe a dot or two of super glue on the return rollers on the buggies just to get them to conform. However, I don't mind rubber band tracks, especially with Sherman. For the most part, unless I get very, very low track tension, there isn't mental sag on Sherman. For the most part. I have seen pictures where there has been, but normally it's not pronounced as it is on, say, like the Panzer series or the T-34 or what have you. So you can get away with rubber band tracks. As long as that they're not too stiff, you should be just fine. And these should paint up just fine. So there is some aftermarket on this kit, and the aftermarket is from Black Dog and RB. So I have an RB 17-pounder barrel, just to see what they're like. I just had to super glue and basically super glue weld the gun into position so she doesn't knock off. It's a very nice piece of turned aluminium and brass muzzle brake, and then an aluminium gun barrel. Because they're cheap barrels, you will see the burring from the lathe, or the CNC lathe that machined them. However, 2 coats of primer will hide that. They're just small little ridges and furlongs that you'll get from the machine's tool bit. And anyone who's ever done metal work or worked in a tool shop will know exactly what I'm talking about. It used to happen to us the whole time when we were machining stuff that you'd get. And the Irish Air Corps are out flying around and upsetting my video. You get little furlongs from the tool bit from the lathe. However, a few turns to the lathe, or a few coats of primer will get rid of that. I'm not sure if the more expensive gun barrels have this. Maybe they have a finer bit on their lathe that may not cut through it as roughly. Now, normally I don't really get too up in arms for metal barrels. I think 2-part barrels are very easily recovered, just with a little bit of putty and sander and some patience. However, I kind of wanted to try just what a metal barrel would give, and it does give a very nice appearance. Also, the muzzle brake, because of the shape of it, would be a little bit awkward to sand. So that's one of the reasons why I went for the metal. And then the stowage, which I think most Shermans should always have a bit of stowage, because that's kind of, especially those on the Western Front, because, well, they always seem to be covered in it. So the stowage is a big 1-piece cast block from Black Dog. Did have some issues with this. I think this was designed for the 1C, which is the Firefly based on the Sherman M4A1, I think, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong there, double check that. So it doesn't fit too well on the engine deck, and it kind of hovered. I had to actually leave off a few little mounting brackets that were in the way. So I had to make a milliput tarp to hang on the little back storage bin, just to hide the seam. Because I didn't want to start cutting into resin, have resin dust everywhere, because, you know, we all know how good resin dust is for you, which it really isn't. It wants to kill you. Added a few little oil drums, what have you, and then a little wooden box from a spares just to hide a big gap that was there. I didn't put anything on the turret. I didn't want to overdo the turret with stowage. And then I added, because a lot of the photographs seem to have a spare road wheel, always kind of thrown in around where the engine, or from where the lights are, should I say. And then I just made a little bit of milliput tarps and blankets, and then like a little captured German steel ham, which I swear to God is not inspired by Fury. I just thought it'd be kind of cool to have it there, that perhaps a tank crew found one on the road and like, oh, we'll take that as a souvenir. And many of them did. You often see pictures of German helmets thrown around these vehicles that lads would be picking them up as souvenirs, and they'd often use them for trading and all that, you know. Very good currency for buying cigarettes during the time. Other than that, the deflector shield, or the gun mantlet, should I say. What did I do with it? Hang on. So the gun mantlet is being given a cast texture from Vallejo putty, and that there just slides directly over like so. I'll glue that in place once I have the turret painted. It's a bit of a tight fit, but there we go. I found if you glue this in place, it's very hard to get the airbrush to paint under the mantlet, and you always kind of miss a couple of spots. So I'm going to leave that off until it's painted. Other than that, I've since picked up a decal sheet from Star, which was formerly Bison, if I remember correctly. It's either Bison or Echelon, one or the other. And it's for the Guards Armour Division, because I'm going to be doing this as a vehicle from the Irish Guards in Operation Market Garden, which is the Allied push into Holland in September of 1944. And, you know, I need to represent the home side and anything with an Irish subject, because there's very few Irish Army models on the market. So Irish regiments in the British Army will have to do. So I'll be doing one of them. So in all, I found this a very good kit. Just a few little issues with the instructions, but other than that, dimensionally, ASUKA model Sherman kits are probably the most accurate at the moment. They're pretty renowned by like the Sherman community as being some of the best there is at the moment. And with just a tiny bit extra work, you can really super detail these up to very, very nice little replicas of the real vehicles. So either way, there's going to be a video of me painting this up in like a speed build format soon and weathering. The follow on from the M4A2. My Easy 8, my Fury Easy 8, I think it just arrived in the post today. It's down in the post office waiting for me. So I'll be doing a video in the next couple of weeks of that. I can't wait because I love me Fury, and I'll finally have a ride for my War Daddy figure. So it's gonna be deadly. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe as always. Happy modeling, and watch out for those buses. Bye bye.